A squally northwesterly wind change around midday breathed lethal potential into what was a spot fire on the west of Edgeworth. Airborne sparks ignited trees which flared over and around houses caught in the path of a searing firestorm. Residents did what they could to protect their property.
It was really frightening. The flames were about twice as high as the house. It was very scary, but we're safe.
What did you do when it came through there?
We've all just been getting the hoses out and trying our darndest to put anything out, wet everything down.
One man praised a neighbour whose lone effort with a garden hose may have averted a tragedy.
My daughter was still inside. She was just screaming. I ran in and got her out.
Elderly residents from the nearby Hawkins Masonic village were readied for evacuation when flames jumped Northville Drive. A car attempting to beat the fire through dense smoke slammed into a stationary fire tanker. The 41-year-old driver was uninjured. The main outbreak was contained in a gully and fire crews were diverted to other areas. Fires in the Cessnock, Aberdare and Louth Park areas had all available services stretched to the limit. Bushfire Headquarters in Cessnock is coordinating more than 30 crews. The Westpac NBN chopper is acting as a spotter for outbreaks. Westerly winds of 40 kilometres an hour are fanning the fires in 40-degree heat. There have been unconfirmed reports of buildings destroyed. Firefighters are holding out for a southerly change, but it still could be hours away. Latest pictures from the Westpac NBN rescue chopper show fires burning on numerous fronts around Cessnock. Roads are closed as all available crews battle burning bush and buildings in Neath. There have been confirmed losses of property at Gosford and Wyong, with unconfirmed losses in the Scone area.
Right, at this stage we've got several major fires with property being threatened. We have some through Neath into Abermain. We've also got another major one on the eastern flank down John Renshaw Drive into Avery's Lane and down towards Black Hill.
Authorities believe the thick, sticky substance which washed onto beaches is fuel oil. Redhead Beach was the worst affected, although oil was found over a 30-kilometre stretch of coastline. After checking its stormwater system today, the Hunter Water Board has ruled out industrial waste, leaving the Maritime Services Board to point the finger at shipping. Investigations are now centring on vessels anchored offshore when the spill was discovered. Oil samples from each ship will be compared with the substance collected on the beaches.
If we can match the material found on the beach with one of the samples taken from the vessels as they come into the port, then we'll be proceeding with a prosecution.
However, early indications suggest the chemical fingerprinting of harbour traffic may fail to yield a culprit.
We anticipate that this material will show to have been in the water for a considerable amount of time, in fact longer than the vessels have been off the port, based on an initial observation of it. So it's likely that the material came from a vessel that was passing the coast.
Can you speculate how it may have actually happened?
It's a very small amount of material, although annoying when it arrived on the beach, and it's probably occurred with the transferring of some fuel oil from one tank to another tank.
Marine pollution legislation allows fines of up to $250,000 if authorities manage to track down the source of the weekend spill. Leslie Robinson, NBN News.
With Mother Nature on her best behaviour for Christmas 90, many hunter families decided to take their celebrations into the great outdoors. Not a snowball in sight in Newcastle's King Edward Park, instead just cricket balls as families settled into an afternoon of real Australian-style recreation. Indoors, other families tucked into king-size Christmas feasts before sitting down to one of the most enjoyable times of the day, gift-giving. And at the new Lambton home of the McKennas, it was smiles all round as presents were exchanged, and not surprisingly, Ninja Turtles made several appearances. For some, however, there was not the freedom to choose how to celebrate Christmas. At the Newcastle police station, 6 prisoners remained in the cells, but for the first time there was a little bit of home when the Salvation Army arrived with pots of turkey, vegetables and sweets. That was distributed amongst the inmates, along with a small present for each. The taste-tempting fare was also laid out for the 12 police on duty today, though for some there was no time for the luxury of sitting down at a table. But no matter where Christmas was spent, at work or play, it was a day that memories were made of.
May Almighty God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
While for most Christmas is a joyous occasion of gift-giving and festivity, for others it's a time of emotional and economic disaster.
Good morning, Lifeline. May we help you?
Lifeline is taking up to 100 calls a day. That's triple the normal rate. In the main, it's a question of loneliness and family disputes. But according to Director Noel Cathcart, the real problems have yet to strike, with families facing huge debts for Christmas borrowing.
In previous tough Christmases, the credit card sort of wasn't a commodity to be used. So the real disadvantage is going to catch up in about a month's time. That's when the crunch comes.
The Salvation Army has never been this busy over Christmas. In association with Matthew Talbot, the Army fed more than 100 people yesterday. That's a 30% increase on last year. Major Stan Hindle says the recession has meant a growing list of people needing help.
It's been an increasing number. It's not to be unexpected. We'd expect that to be the case, and it was the case.
But with the gloom, welfare groups have noticed a new generosity from the community, with record numbers of presents donated this year for those not so fortunate.
In some ways, the recession has reminded people to care for others, and that's a good thing.
The aircraft was brought to the port of Newcastle at first light this morning, where it was offloaded under a cloak of secrecy. Air Force investigators took the wreckage to RAF Base Williamtown, where it will be reassembled in a bid to establish the cause of the crash, which killed 31-year-old pilot Flight Lieutenant Russell Page. Witnesses said the aircraft's wing appeared to separate from the jet before it hit the ocean on a routine exercise 20 kilometres southeast of Foster.
It was a small and subdued service in the rubble of the demolished York wing of Royal Newcastle Hospital. Those who could left their beds. Others looked on from the balconies. There were memories of the scene 12 months ago when the entire hospital was evacuated and moved to makeshift wards overlooking Newcastle Beach. But more than this, it was hope for the future, which dominated the service led by hospital chaplains. Elsewhere in the city, a ceremony at Newcastle RSL Club. The club's King Street premises was one of the first buildings to be demolished after the earthquake. That day was remembered with a performance and march to the former RSL site by the club's pipe band. Away from all the official ceremonies, an impromptu gathering at the King Street site of the Workers' Club. Beyond the floral tributes to the 9 who died here, only Twisted Metal gives a clue to the tragedy of December 28. But both the physical and emotional scars were apparent among the small group of club staff, survivors and rescuers.
I'm getting a very eerie feeling again, knowing that it was 12 months ago that I was in there rescuing people that were seriously injured and killed. It has gotten to me today, actually. It's taken me 12 months to cry about that incident. Here I go again.
The subdued approach to today's anniversary spread to Beaumont Street, Hamilton. There was a quiet awareness of the tragedy which claimed 3 lives here and disrupted so many more as traders struggled to survive. But the overwhelming sentiment was business as usual. December 28 will always be remembered, but the community now looks to the future. Leslie Robinson, NBN News.
The $440,000 Championship Series reaches its 7th round tomorrow night, and with the previous meetings having produced some awesome duels, it's certain to be nothing short of spectacular. The reason is the calibre of the field coming. Among them, Ohio star Jack Hewitt, who stormed home to collect the money at Sydney's Parramatta Speedway in the previous round earlier this week. Hot on his heels that night was defending champion Sydney-sider Max Demesny, who's currently sitting 3rd in the series, while George Tatnell and son Brooke provided plenty of entertainment in their tussle for 3rd. The younger eventually won out. Brooke is also leading the series at present, just ahead of Jack Hewitt. But their task is certain to be made that much harder by the presence of 2 other Americans, Danny Smith and Bobby Allen, winner of the Knoxville Nationals, regarded as the world's biggest sprint car race. Giving them plenty of stick will be the top-flight Aussies, including Gary Rush, currently sitting 4th in the series, but clearly beginning to hit his straps.
The 15-event Nescafe Pro Beach Tour takes in the eastern seaboard from Melbourne to Hamilton Island. The sport is relatively new to Australia, building on a tradition established in the United States, where top players can net up to $250,000 on the circuit. Here the pickings aren't as lucrative. Australia's top players earn more like $10,000. The rules are similar to indoor volleyball. The difference lies in the demand placed on players. The sand makes it tougher to move and jump, and 2 players take the place of a full team.
The net's the same height, the court's the same size, and you just have to be able to play all the skills a bit more.
Australian champion Paul Calder is defending his title and the place he shares at the top of the prize money list. The Newcastle leg of the tour promises to be a tough battle. It will be played on Saturday, Sunday and Monday on the new volleyball court set up at Newcastle Beach.
The Royal Opera House in Covent Garden holds a special place in Dame Joan's remarkable career. Her 1959 role as Donizetti's Lucia was the triumph that brought her world fame. And returning on New Year's Eve after 30 stunning years was a moving event indeed. Last Stupenda's farewell to Europe was in a cameo appearance in De Fledermaus. The opera came to a standstill for several minutes amid waves of applause. Then, beside Luciano Pavarotti, the towering 64-year-old soprano gave a performance that left her audience, as it has for so long, quite breathless. The curtain call literally glittered as Dame Jones' admirers were able to beat their drum and shower her with praise.
In the Hunter, police were on the lookout today for cyclists not yet wearing their helmets. Many chose not to. For now, it means a reminder that the helmets are compulsory and failure to wear one will be met with a $32 fine. The Australian standard approved helmets can be purchased from around $30. They have a hard plastic shell and padded polystyrene inside. Earlier model cycling helmets will also comply with the regulation. The helmets will also be compulsory for under 16-year-olds from July, but some riders aren't looking forward to it.
I think that a lot of young people are reluctant to wear them because none of their friends are.
Why is that? Mainly for looks, or?
Yeah, of course. They don't even look like an egghead.
There are some daggy helmets around, but I think they have tried to zip them up with the colours and everything like that. So I don't think they're really that daggy, and if everyone's going to be wearing them.
An intensive advertising campaign for the helmets has already convinced many cyclists of their value. Radar detectors and jammers are also under the official spotlight. It is an offence to sell or use them from today, but there is a 3-month moratorium from prosecution for owners and sellers to dispose of the devices.
If you're found in possession with a radar detector, after the 3 months it'll be a $750 fine.
The hang glider slammed into dense scrub on the face of the lookout about 70 metres below the launch site. 35-year-old pilot Greg Smith of Raymond Terrace was alone when he lost control on takeoff and plunged into the trees. An experienced pilot and well-known in competition circles, Greg took the precaution of carrying a portable CB radio. He was able to raise the alarm through the Crest emergency radio system and continued to talk to rescuers as they attempted to reach him.
Can you tell us just what sort of break the leg is? Is it a compound fracture or what? Go ahead.
It's a common fracture. It's not compound. It's only one of the bones. It's the front bone, not the back bone.
After struggling free of his harness, the pilot endured an uncomfortable 4 hours waiting for rescue crews to find the best way to reach him. Late this afternoon, he was lowered on a stretcher to the ground after attempts to reach him from the air were called off.
While they are increasing their aggression,
we are increasing our resistance.
Greg Smith has no doubt about how close he came to losing his life.
When I hit the cliff and I started to fall, I distinctly remember thinking, well, I can die here.
It was only this small two-way radio and his quick thinking which saved him. Within minutes of hitting trees, Greg had freed himself from the glider and, realising his leg was broken, had perched himself on a nearby rock ledge.
Then try and keep as calm as possible, because that was the best way to give me the most chance of survival.
It was Greg's calmness, though, which had radio operators fooled. They originally thought the call for help was a hoax, but then realising Greg was in trouble, Port Stephens Crest operator Brian Durant set about getting assistance.
I am on the phone at the moment to police. They're contacting Westpac, so you're now untangled and free of the wreckage. Are you able to be plucked away from the wreckage safely, Greg? Go ahead.
There's quite a few trees here. I would say it'd be difficult, but not impossible.
Originally, the plan was to winch Greg to safety, but dense scrub made that impossible, so police paramedics descended the sheer face. While the rescue effort was being played out above him, Greg was all the time in contact with Port Stephens and Newcastle Crest operators.
It was extremely comforting to make an emergency call and then 10 or 15 seconds later have somebody come back that you knew was trained in gathering information so that they could best decide who to assign to the task of doing a rescue.
5 hours after the glider crashed, Greg was safely on the ground. While he's still deciding whether he'll take to the air again, his $4,500 glider remains precariously perched on the face of the Watagans. Jodie McKay for NBN News.
Right from the outset, the likeable South African showed his net prowess to grab an early break. Lendl also ventured to the net on rare occasions with devastating effect, and he was equally at home with the lob. Van Rensburg went to a 5-3 lead in the first set with a mixture of shots including great touch. The world number 3 wasn't going to give the set away and produced a string of winners. Lendl had a chance to break back after Van Rensburg went long. But he made amends to grab the first set 6-4. Five games of the second set went with serve, then Lendl finally got the break he was after. Lendl kept up the pressure by serving superbly and stretched his lead to 5-2 before the Van Rensburg comeback. He held serve, then broke Lendl, with the latter showing his anger at squandering set points. Again, Van Rensburg held serve and delicately went to a 6-5 lead. The frustrated former number 1 thundered 2 outright winners to level at deuce. But on his third match point, Van Rensburg was handed the match. The match between Australia's Wally Masur and Germany's Karl-Uwe Stieb was entertainment plus, with the first set punctuated by breaks of serve. Stieb got the final break in the 7th game. And from there he was able to go on and wrap up the first set 6-4. Masur was the popular pick and received great crowd support. Wally was hell-bent on squaring the match and produced superb tennis to do just that. Stieb's forehand began to be a lethal weapon. But 2 volleying errors gave Stieb the break he needed, and Charlie Stieb was finally through after a long battle.